Introduction of Facebook. Today, almost a quarter of the global population have a Facebook account, spending an average of 30 minutes a day posting, liking, and scrolling. But how did it all start? Back in February 2004, Mark Zuckerberg and his fellow Harvard classmate launched the Facebook. This university profile page was a huge hit. Within 24 hours, 1,200 Harvard students signed up. A year later, it was being used by every single university in America. The Facebook became Facebook.com in August 2005 after the address was purchased for $2 million, and by October that year, it had gone international, used by universities across the UK. In March 2006, Facebook received $1 million offer from Yahoo, which was rejected. September 2006, Facebook expanded beyond university students. So as long as you have a registered email address, you could sign up, upload your most flattering profile picture and update your status. It's still free to join Facebook because Facebook makes money through advertising. In March 2007, Microsoft brought up a 1.4% stake in the company, valuing Facebook at $15 million. By January 2009, Facebook had overtaken MySpace to become the internet's largest social network. In April 2011, Facebook snapped up the photo and video sharing app Instagram for $1 billion. Then on 18 May 2012, Facebook made a stock market debut priced at $42, valuing the entire company $114 billion with 845 million active monthly users. The 1PO raised $16 million, making the third largest initial public offer in USA history. Facebook is now worth around $500 billion, making the sixth most valuable company in the stakes with nearly 2 billion monthly users. How exactly did the crisis take place? Facebook admitted that a developer who had accessed the data of 50 million Facebook users later sold it to a political firm called Cambridge Analytica. The firm was later hired by the Trump campaign. Facebook says both parties violated its policies, but many users feel that the company could have done more to protect their data, and a growing number of people say they are leaving the site. So this is 2020. But to understand what is happening, today you have to look back to Facebook's policies between 2007 and 2015. In 2007, Facebook opened its platform to developers, meaning it's allowed outside apps to access all kinds of users' data. Did you ever use Spotify? You may have noticed that when you use their app, they ask you to sign in through Facebook. Back then, Facebook allowed apps not just to access your information but also to access the information of your friends. During this time, Facebook became a fixture in its users' life. By allowing access to the data, Facebook paved the way for all kinds of apps to help people find dates, search for jobs, be productive, and stay outstained. It's also assured in a new style of political campaigning, and that's in the turn fueled the social network's growth. In 2007, Facebook had 58 million users. Today it has more than 2 billion, but back to that period we were talking about. In 2014, a Facebook dialed way back on its data sharing policies. It announced that it would restrict the data that apps could access, and it could stop allowing developers from getting the information of your friends without their permission. Those changes were implemented in 2015. But this period in Facebook history had already opened the company up to some of the massive problem it is facing today. In 2013, when all of this data was still available, a Cambridge University researcher accessed the information of 50 million Facebook users. That data was ultimately told against Facebook policies to Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica says it's launching its own investigation to terminate the firms engaged in any wrongdoing. Now Facebook says it's instigating all the apps that has access to the massive amounts of users' information, but that's a lot of apps, a lot of Facebook users, and a lot of their friends. I think this is a widespread issue as we figure out how to appropriately and transparently monetize these businesses without compromising too much of users' privacy. Not just the social media platforms have to be rethinking their business models or making them much more transparent, but search engines and even manufacturers of internet browser need to be aware of this, because there's a lot of browser information that could be tracked from site. And I think that is another piece of the privacy puzzle that people don't really think about when they are surfing the web. From a privacy and security standpoint, I think we really need to take a hard look at what these business models are offering to us, the users, and what they are taking from us in return. I think it needs to be much more simpler and clearer from the average user to understand what of their data is being shared and with whom. I believe Facebook can survive. This particular breach of trust, it wasn't necessarily a technical data breach, but it was a breach of trust in accessing this data. Because people find the platform so useful, they'll continue to use it. It's just a matter of time, though, between now and the next potential breach when there's so much data that's so attractive. In the case of crises like these, your company needs to move fast. In order to do that, you need even faster insights. Social platforms, through the billion of conversations happening every day, provide the unique insights you need to make the right decision when faced with a crisis. Regardless of how large or small, not only does PR security empower you to prevent a crisis by quick detection for immediate engagement, it also gives you the tools to analyze the effectiveness of your decision. Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg admitted that they were late to respond to the game. That is a classic never do in PR crisis. You have to show with great immediacy, empathy, and actions for how long your audience is taking the particular news issue. There's going to be a lot of hard work. They are finally stepping up to the plate. In crises like these, you have to own a portion of it, even if the violation were not necessarily of your own doing. The Cambridge Analytica folks did not tell Facebook how they were misusing the data, but ultimately it's Facebook's problem because it's Facebook's platform and they were the one who set the terms and conditions for it. Then I see Facebook has succeeded in the long term.